All right, let's talk about what just happened with PLAZM. We saw this absolutely massive, explosive wave of staking, and it happened right after the protocol's biggest stress test. We're going to break down exactly why. Let's dive in.
Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty, you know the drill. This is just for educational purposes, all right? It is not financial advice. Please always do your own research.
So get this, the big headline here is that in just 48 hours right after day 94, more than 250,000 PLAZM tokens got staked. I mean, this wasn't just some little blip on the radar. No way. This was the single largest staking wave the protocol has ever seen. A massive, massive move.
And that's the big question, right? Why on earth did this happen after what everyone thought was the moment of maximum risk? I mean, why would so many people decide to lock up their tokens for the long haul right after the protocol's biggest stress test? Well, the answer, it really gets to the heart of the game theory behind this whole thing.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the surge itself, then get into the math behind the time-squared engine. After that, we'll see why day 94 was such a huge catalyst, and look at the flywheel it kicked off. Then we'll touch on a pretty historic milestone that's coming up, and wrap it all up with what's called the time over price thesis.
All right, first up, the 250K token surge. And let me be clear, this wasn't just a bunch of hype or FOMO. This was a super calculated move. You could call it a wave of rational conviction.
So check this out. The impact on the supply was pretty much immediate. The total amount staked jumped from 31% all the way up to a new all-time high of 35%. And at the exact same time, the liquid supply, the tokens available to be traded, actually dropped from 44% down to 40%. That's its lowest point ever.
But look, the real story here isn't just about tokens getting locked up. It's about what those locked tokens create, and that's shares. The total number of shares in the protocol just exploded, jumping a crazy 15% in only 2 days to over $11 billion. So you might be asking, what exactly are these shares? Well, think of them as your claim on the daily rewards. The more shares you have, the bigger your piece of the pie. See, the whole game isn't just about holding tokens. It's about generating shares. And how you do that? Well, that's where things get really interesting.
And that brings us to the core mechanic, the time-squared engine, or T-squared. This is the math, the formula that dictates how you generate those shares we were just talking about. And honestly, it's the real reason this whole surge happened in the first place. Okay, so in most staking systems, things are pretty simple, right? It's linear. You stake for twice as long, you get twice the rewards. Easy. But with T-squared, that's not how it works at all. The relationship is exponential. If you stake for twice as long, you don't just get double the power, you get 4 times the power. Your ability to earn rewards grows by the square of the time you lock in. It's a total game changer.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. A 30-day stake. That's your baseline, we'll call it 1x power. Now double that to 60 days. You're not at 2x power, you're at 4x. 4 times the ability to generate shares. Push it out to the standard 77-day cycle, and you're looking at a 6.6x multiplier. 90 days, that's a 9x multiplier. So the big takeaway here is this. For anyone playing the T-squared game, time is, without a doubt, the most powerful weapon in your arsenal.
So that brings us back to the question. If the math is so powerful, why did everyone pile in after day 94? Well, it's because day 94 wasn't a crisis. It was the exact opposite. It was the ultimate catalyst. It completely flipped the script from uncertainty to validation.
Yeah, just think about the psychology for a second. Before day 94, there was this big cloud of what if hanging over everything because of a huge token unlock. The smart play was to just wait and see. But then, the unlock happened, and the protocol barely flinched. The price only dipped like 1.5%. And just like that, the entire mindset shifted. Wait and see instantly turned into, okay, it's time to lock in.
And you've got to understand, this wasn't some emotional knee-jerk reaction. It was a totally rational game theory move. That whole anti-fragile idea people talked about, it was just proven, in real time, under serious pressure. Suddenly, the perceived risk of staking long-term just plummeted. So with risk way down and confidence way up, the strategy for anyone who believed in the project completely changed. The single most logical thing to do was to go long and maximize your T-squared power.
And you know, this massive wave of staking didn't just happen and then stop. Nope, it kicked off this incredibly powerful, self-reinforcing loop, what we call the staking flywheel.
So here's how this flywheel spins. First, that big staking surge yanks a ton of liquid supply off the market, which helps support the price. At the same time, all the ETH from those new stakes gets fed into the yield engine, which pushed the vault to a new all-time high of almost $500,000. And that growth, it's like a huge billboard to the market that says, hey, this thing is healthy and growing. And what does that do? It attracts new interest, and the whole cycle just repeats, but stronger each time.
Now, all of this action, it's pushing the protocol towards a really big, kind of historic moment. A milestone we're calling the Great Crossover. Just look at this. For the first time in the protocol's history, the amount of staked supply, which is now at 35%, is getting incredibly close to the liquid supply, which is at 40%. Now think about that. When the tokens locked up by long-term believers start to rival the tokens available for anybody to trade, that's a fundamental power shift. It can create a serious supply shock.
And if you zoom out even more, the picture gets even crazier. You take the stake supply, you add in the tokens in the liquidity pool, and you add the tokens that have been burned, and you get 60%. A full 60% of the total supply is now protected. It's not just sitting around waiting to be sold. I mean, that completely rewrites the rules of supply and demand for the whole system.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. Let's tie all these pieces together into the one big idea that explains everything we've seen. And it's a simple one: time over price.
You see, there are basically two ways to look at this. You've got the short-term trader, and they're watching the price chart every single day. But then you have the T-squared accumulator, and they are playing a completely different game. They don't care about the daily price. They care about one thing: maximizing their number of shares over the long haul. Why? Because they know that with T-squared math, time is the ultimate cheat code for earning future rewards. And that 250,000 token surge, that was driven 100% by that second group.
So let's just run it back one last time. 250,000 tokens, 48 hours, 35% of the total supply staked. This wasn't FOMO. This was T-squared mathematics playing out in real time. Day 94 proved the system works, and now the believers are locking in their exponential advantage. Time squared, it isn't just a mechanic, it's a conviction strategy.
And hey, as we wrap up here, just one last time, remember, this is all for educational purposes. It is not financial advice in any way. Crypto is a risky game, so please never invest more than you're okay with losing, and always, always do your own deep research before you make any moves.